can you grab me a water?
Yeah.
Thank
Make that two.
you. Get up. What'd you drive today?
Anyone else?
Truck?
Way better mileage. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. It's better mileage? Than your
Way
Jeep?
better.
Than your Jeep?
Yeah, my Jeep averages maybe 15, eight in the city. This thing's 15 and 24.
If we can go ahead and call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order, and if we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Doing a roll call, we have everyone present here. We have any public comment at all here for? And I think we've actually got you on the agenda there, Elaine, if you, okay, all right.
Elaine Fisher, 508 Main Street West, Isanti. I'm here representing the Isanti Lions, and I was to give you an update on the eyeglass project. To date, we have gotten 67 pairs, and the liquor store is leading the way with 46. But I also want to thank Josie Wood's son for taking 192 pairs of glasses up to the recycling center in Pine City the end of October. So thank you for the small way of which we can do something really easy together. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Glad to help. You know how to raise them over there, don't you, Josie? Keep up the good work.
Yeah, so my son does go to Pine City every day for school at Pine Tech, so we had offered to take him up there if they needed a drive to get him, and it worked out.
Nice. All right, any other public comment? All right, so we'll move into our first item of business, which is E1, the cannabis regulation discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Legal sales for cannabis are expected to begin in January 2025. The Isanti County is currently working on an ordinance to regulate activity, and it's anticipated that they will limit the number of cannabis retailers and micro businesses and meso businesses in Isanti County to 4, which is a statutory minimum, which is 1 per every 12,500 residents. Now, the city has adopted our own registration requirements in Ordinance Chapter 123 of City Code, therefore can regulate within our own jurisdiction. A city that issues cannabis retailer registrations may by ordinance limit the number of licensed cannabis retailers, cannabis meso businesses with a retail operations endorsement, and cannabis micro businesses within a retail operations endorsement to no fewer than 1 registration for every 12,500 residents. There is no maximum unless the city chooses to include that within the ordinance. The county can only issue registrations for businesses located within the city if the city consents. Per statute 342.13, each city and/or township can decide to delegate registration authority to the county. The county has provided an example resolution with language should the city be interested in that. So that is my first question, is to determine if there is any interest of our city council in passing the registration requirements over to the county.
No.
No.
I guess I was gonna ask, how, are other cities in the county doing their own regulation?
I was at a meeting with, the city of Cambridge was present along with Isanti County. We were all discussing what we've done thus far in regards to cannabis. And at that time, which that was a couple weeks ago, they had not done their own regulation yet. So I'm not sure if they're going to or not. I have not kept up with them.
That was Cambridge, you said?
That was Cambridge. And Bram, I'm not sure.
In one of the county meetings, they had said that the townships were not interested in doing their own, but they, the cities had pretty much all said that they were going to do their own. I think it's just because the townships don't have as much staff probably, and the cities do, and I don't believe in government preemption or having any power outside of us, so.
If the
I'm with keeping it
consensus of
in-house.
the committee is to continue with what we've done thus far, then I just have further questions to go a little deeper involved to make sure that we have everything covered before January and the new law or until retail sales can commence. So consensus is to continue with our own
Yeah.
registration. Okay. So a couple things. One of them, let's talk about the fee for a moment. So the council did adopt a fee in the fee schedule for registration, which was $150. One thing that the state allows for is to choose that limit or that fee up to $500. So I want to ensure that we want to keep that that at $150, or if we want to change it, we will be talking about the fee schedule also within the next couple meetings. But also what the statute allows the city to do is to set a renewal fee, which would be for year 2 of the registration and subsequent years. We don't currently have a fee in place for that, so I'd like to know if there's interest of the committee to designate a fee for renewals. The
For what?
renewal fee by statute can go up to $1,000.
And what would that fee? I didn't catch that. The fee for what?
The registration,
Okay.
so if you have a cannabis business that wants to come to the city of Isani, currently we have that initial application of registration at $150.
Right.
But we don't have a fee listed for subsequent renewal years.
And is that per year, or is
Per
that?
year.
Okay.
I mean, typically what we're trying to cover is our staff cost of, permitting and stuff like that. So, I mean, is there, and I don't know, I guess, as far as liquor renewals, I mean, we charge a fee every year, right? And so just the same as what the initial licensing cost is, or, I guess I don't remember exactly what it is, but,
We can pull up the liquor.
okay.
I know when we've looked at the fee that we set was to look at staff time as well as the police department's time, as they have to vet out the business as well. Pull up the liquor here.
Travis, how many times a year are you required to check in on these places?
I don't know if there's a requirement for us to check in other than the initial criminal background check, which is what.
Okay.
this
That's
would-
for approving the actual registration. However, statute has set that local jurisdictions who give the registration are required to inspect annually.
Okay.
So we will want to take
once a
that
year.
into account as well. I think that, I'm not sure when we last discussed it, that had been put into place, but it has been stated now by the state.
I guess I have an opinion that I would like to set these for now at the maximum, because I am very worried that the state is gonna continue to mess around with the rules and cause us a lot of struggle with staff time. So I think it's still too soon, but I would feel most comfortable setting at the maximum for those reasons.
I'm with you, Luke, on that.
I guess, I mean, I think it should be treated just how we would treat anything else. If we're covering our cost, I mean, that's,
But the problem is, we don't know what the state's
Right.
gonna require of us. If they're gonna require the PD to end up going in there every 2 months to do a compliance check, or that stuff could really add up. I mean, yeah. They kinda went in, like what they do with a lot of things, kinda half-cocked on the whole legalizing it without actually having a plan, and it's just it's risky.
yeah, I mean, I agree, they could have done a better job of rolling it all out, but, I mean, Travis, what's our cost to go in and do an inspection like that, and, what kind of time does that take for our officers, and?
It would depend a little bit on the number. The more number would be the less dollar number, right? You know, if you had 6 inspections, that would cost less than 1. You know, so, and depends on how in-depth that is. I mean, like your tobacco compliance checks that we don't do, but the county does, take a lot more time because they're actually sending in people to purchase tobacco at underage. You know, so that takes a lot more in-depth than just going in and looking, so. Depends on time-wise, so. It depends on what they're gonna end up requiring us to actually compliance check. If they need us to do compliance buys, that's a lot more. And again, if you only had 1, it's gonna cost you, 2 hour, 3 hours of time, but at the same time, you could probably do 6.
Sure.
So we'll need to do compliant buys if we take jurisdiction of this.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've laid out, that's the compliance piece. I was trying to look and see if we can decipher what they're looking for on compliance checks. Because they don't require that for other things. You know, the alcohol does not require a compliance check, but the tobacco does.
And I haven't seen where they've laid it out, so that's why it makes me nervous, because they could just change something and cost us thousands of dollars, so.
We can always lower it. I'm with you on that. Let's be safe the first year, see how it goes, talk to staff, talk to the police department, see how it went the first year, see if we need to lower it. I'm with Mayor Gordon on, not charging businesses any more than we absolutely have to, but too many uncertainties the first year, and might as well cover our own costs.
It's kind of one of those things, though, you set it high, you're never gonna lower it, you know what I mean?
So just to answer the question for the liquor license, so it depends on which liquor license. It varies anywhere from off-sale beer at $150 all the way up to intoxicating liquors on sale at $2,500. That is annual, and we don't do a discount or change-in fee for renewal. It would be the same as the initial. So
Is
every
there any
year-
cost to, I mean, as far as our staff time in the office, I mean, is, a renewal is, I would imagine, much more simple than the initial?
Actually, it's the same
Is
process
the
for
same?
most
Okay.
things, yeah.
Yeah, so we should just leave it the same then. But yeah, I don't have a problem charging for the renewal, but I don't think we should charge an unreasonable amount either.
They said the maximum was $1,000.
1,000 for renewal, but 500 for the initial.
I don't know
And I
if we,
did ask the county if what they were setting their fee at, and it hadn't been discussed at their meetings yet, so I'm not sure.
How much is a liquor license renewal?
A liquor license in general, whether it's a first-time applicant or renewal, depends on what type of liquor. It varies from $150 if it's like a beer off sale, all the way up to $2,500 for intoxicating on sale.
it's a wide-
Quite a spread
wide
because we have
range.
about 6 different liquor license types.
I think the statutory maximums are still too low. I mean, if you look at, if you have a liquor store, I mean, I think the limits are too low. That's another reason why I'd like to go with the full amount.
I just think $1,000 for a renewal is a lot of money.
It's worse in the cities.
Yeah, it is, and that's the cost of doing business.
And it's not, and it's, if they have hard liquor is one, they have beer, it's another one, they have whatever, there's multiple charges for different things, so that could be $10,000-15,000 for a bar to have a liquor license, because each one is category different.
Well, and there are different cannabis licenses, and we could have different fees attached to different types of licenses. So a cultivator, a manufacturer, different than a retailer. We could get into that if we wanted to have different, similar to, if we're trying to do something similar to liquor, that we feel that some don't have as much, I don't know if it's risk of having to go out for inspections or calls or something like that, maybe less overhead. They have a smaller fee than others.
I think we should, I don't think we should separate them, I think we should all keep it the same.
Flat rate?
Because one guy's gonna wanna do this, and then all of a sudden he wants to grow into this, so it's gonna be, you know,
It definitely is simpler to do that, just because there are some business types that they will get a license from the state that allow them to do multiple things, and
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think we should get into the weeds on, you know, this type of, well, I
Well,
guess
it's
we already
okay.
have, haven't we?
Yeah.
Travis got that one. Okay, but I don't think we should have something different forever. It's just, make it simple,
rate.
yeah. Well, I'm okay with the 150 the way it is and doing a renewal for 150. You guys would like to see the max?
I'm not.
You guys want to see 5 and 1,000? What do you guys think?
I don't know. I would say 500 on the initial, but for $1,000 for renewal, I think that,
I think just to stay 500 and 500.
I did look into why the state has allowed jurisdictions to go to 1,000. I was not able to find any information why that was more.
They're probably trying to incentivize these businesses to start sooner. That's,
I'm okay with compromising on 500.
I don't think that's unrealistic, I think we should
I
keep
don't
it the
either.
same across the board, not this and this, or this and this, it's,
can we,
It gives us a leeway if we do have problems in the future and we're spending too much time, we can raise it if we need to.
Can we do anything where it's like that $500 flat rate, and then if, say, for whatever reason legislation changes things and you have to do a monthly inspection, can we charge for a monthly inspection, or is that something that we can add in our own language?
If the state statute allows us authority to do so, then we could, I would imagine if they did permit us, it would be by ordinance, and we would update our fee schedule to include a new fee.
How about doing it this way? It's $500, one inspection a year, and that's it. Any other inspections is X amount of dollars more.
The
That would
state
be-
has-
that would
The
be-
state has not given us the authority to be able to charge per inspection. It just says that we're required to inspect once annually. So there might be new guidance that comes out about that, but currently, I'm not aware of any.
I think the way to word it, so we're not sitting here going back and forth all the time, is word it that way. If state is requiring more inspections, we have to charge according to inspections. Because if they say that you have to have 3 inspections annually, and right now they're only saying 1, and they change it to 3, then we could actually charge for that inspection fee.
And it does say that they will publish the compliance inspection information at some time.
Exactly. This whole thing is botched. That's, I would
This whole
rather
thing
just,
was just
can we
pushed
just table
through.
this forever? I mean, until they actually get their situation figured out?
What, are they supposed to
Well,
start
we
selling
do-
in January?
They're starting in January, and we do want to get something in place because if the state does issue a license and we don't have our local regulations in place, there aren't any for them. So we won't be able to deny. So that's why we want to make sure we get included what we want, as currently is permitted for us to do, and then I think we revisit it if there's new changes that come out.
Can we put a moratorium on it at all?
We have had a moratorium.
Yep.
The moratorium to investigate what we're gonna do, we've already been there.
Can we do it again?
I guess I don't know that question, or that answer to that question.
I don't want to get in
I
this,
don't
I
know
don't,
what we would investigate.
Luke,
We just
it
need more
really
time
is
to
not
think.
that, it's really not that big a deal. I mean,
Okay.
I would never vote for a moratorium. I mean, it is what it is, and it's, I mean, let's just stick to the basics here on, what do we want to charge for licensing? Getting into whether or not you want a moratorium is not really topical right now. So, I mean, I would say, if you're 5-5, Jeff, what do you think?
I can go 5-5.
Okay, let's move, bring that for a vote, and, I think it's too high, but I think that sounds like a compromise solution, so.
Okay, then my next question is how many, if any, limits do we want to place on the registration? So we are required to approve 1 in every 12,500 residents, so that would be 1 within our city. But there is no defined ceiling, so to say, or maximum on the number of registrations unless the city wants to put a limit on there. Does the city desire to have a limit of registrations?
You mentioned there were 3 levels. Retail,
Well, there's actually.
would the amount of businesses we allow in, would that cover all 3? So if we said 3, 1 retailer, 1 cultivator, 1 micro, is it micro type business? Or
Cannabis
if we said 3,
manufacturing.
would it be 3 of each?
Between the cannabis retailers, micro business and meso business, which I believe all have a retail component, it is the 1 in every 12,500.
Okay.
But there are multiple business types, which there is a handout there that, because we're gonna briefly discuss zoning. And if we wanna look at any zoning things for cannabis, activity. So you can see that there's manufacturing, there's, wholesale, distribution, transportation, different activity types with it. But I believe it's revolves around the retail part of it.
So if we said 1, I'm not saying we are, that would just limit 1 type of those businesses to come into town.
I believe so.
I personally would say we should look at, say, 2 retail and 1 of each of these other 4.
I was gonna suggest the same
Say
thing,
2,
something
say
like
2
that.
retail and 1 of each of these others.
Can we define it like that, Josie?
I'm just gonna pull up.
I thought you were a free market guy, George.
I am. I am.
I mean, I don't want 100 of these shops either in town, but I don't want the city to dictate how many businesses of any kind can be in town, and I think, you know, the market can dictate that, you know, if there's 3 or 4 shops in town, I can guarantee you that they're probably not all gonna make it for very long, you know what I mean? So I guess I would just like to see the market dictate how many come into town, but I think the county, though, is planning on limiting it at 4 anyway, so. And I would imagine that somebody's gonna wanna open in Cambridge if they allow it there, but,
Specifically, statute states a local government unit that issues a cannabis retailer registration under section, the statute 342.22, may by ordinance limit the number of licensed cannabis retailers, cannabis mezzo businesses within a retail operations endorsement, and cannabis micro businesses with a retail operations endorsement to no fewer than 1 registration for every 12,500. So in terms of the other, let's just categorize, like, the other might be manufacturing. I'm not aware that we have to require that, but we are going to want to discuss briefly if we want to have some zoning controls on that of where they can go. So I think we're just talking about the retail part of it, is what we can't limit less than 1.
Well, if the county limited it to 4, it barely even covers the whole spectrum. I mean, they should not.
and I don't know if the
looking at
county,
it-
is the county just talking about like retail
The
or?
retail part of it, those 3, the retail, the mezzo business that has a retail component, yeah, it's the retail part of it.
So if one company wanted to come in here, but they want to buy up all 4 of the licenses, is that possible?
I do believe that there is the ability for one company to have and hold multiple licenses with the state. Now, if they all have to be the same type exactly, I'm not sure.
The state's not sure either, I'm
And
sure.
the county hasn't passed anything on that yet, right? That's just discussion that they're having, I think.
They're having discussion, I believe it's going to their planning commission meeting either this month or next month.
We need to reach out to them and tell them 4 actually isn't enough. It doesn't cover the whole spectrum. That means one city maybe will get 2, and another city could grab 1. That would leave us 1, but what if
So,
microbrewery type company wants to come in and a
so
and a
just to be
retail?
clear, if we are doing our own registration, which we are currently, and we have said that we are going to continue, the county doesn't limit the city. So we're
Okay.
doing our own.
Oh.
The county would only limit if we were passing on for them to do our registration.
Okay.
If we
That's
keep it,
what I
we could
thought.
have 10 retailers here.
Okay.
Now, our 10 would count, if they were only allowing 4, they wouldn't have to allow any more within their
I
countywide.
gotcha, okay.
So,
'Cause I knew there was some overlap there, but
There's
it's
some
not,
overlap, but it's
it's in
not-
our direction to them, not
Correct.
their direction to us. Gotcha,
correct.
okay.
Well, the only thing that I worry about when you put a number on it, that a company's gonna come in and snatch up as many of those licenses as possible, because that's what they do with liquor licenses.
Can we limit it to 1 license per person or per company, or
They'll just start a new LLC.
what?
They'll just start a new LLC with the same owners. You can get around that like nothing,
Doing business as DBA.
yeah.
It'd take them time.
Half an
About
hour.
a week.
Yeah,
It doesn't take long to get an LLC.
yeah.
So the license
I could have
gets
one for you in
issued by the state. So if the state, the OCM, has issued the license, however
Oh,
they
that part,
determine that a business can hold or have the license, we don't get to have a say in that. So if they issue multiple license to one business, I don't know if they're doing that or not, but if they did, that would be out of our purview anyways. It can only be once they've got and received the license because they've met the requirements through the state, that it comes to us to do the registration part of it. We don't get to say that they can have the license or not.
Well, if one company did come in and buy 3 licenses to cover that whole spectrum, it might be more profitable for them to do that than to have 3 separate businesses, because they're all set up for it too, so, better chance for them maybe to succeed, I don't,
Well,
just theorizing.
what's dumb here is they're showing actually 8 different licenses. Retail, transportation, delivery, events, and then you get into cultivation, cannabis manufacturing, processing, extraction, hemp manufacturing, and wholesale. So I didn't look on the other side till just briefly, but I don't know. I personally don't care to have 30 of these in the city or 10 of them in the city, but that's my personal opinion. I just don't want to see them growing this all over the city either. I mean, I can walk into somebody's house. I've worked on many houses in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I walk in there and they got 3 plants sitting outside. I walk in their yard, I can smell it. To me, it's obnoxious. But that's their business. They can do what they want.
I'm not gonna vote to approve any of this until the state has actual guidelines with everything laid out. So I think it's just too soon on all of it, and I don't wanna put my name on any of it.
I know where she's going with it. And that can change
I guess on this-
monthly.
And you're right, it could change, and we may have to amend the ordinance. We did approve the ordinance, and we've made changes already because things have been evolving, and we'll continue to evolve with it in the best interest of the city. But if we don't, and it's fine if you don't want to set a maximum, but if you don't set a maximum, there is no maximum,
Except for what the market dictates.
except for what the market dictates. I just want everyone to be aware of that.
And like you said, George, I mean, let's say you have, all these different license types. I mean, if somebody wants to come in and have a big grow house operation, I mean, that, that could be a lot of jobs in town too. And that's not a retail establishment necessarily. It's a totally different, industrial type of activity, so, I don't know. I don't see any problem with just letting the market work and pick winners and losers instead of us doing it, so.
I agree.
Well, I don't think somebody's gonna set up a whole growing, just, factory setup. It's not, just a couple $1,000s to do this.
No,
It's-
they're not
it's-
gonna do it for a long time still.
And it's, 5 years ago, there was a company, I was supposed to go work on it, and they were gonna build one, I think it was over by Becker. And it never transpired, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up that system. So I don't think somebody's gonna come in there like,
That was just your part of what, the work
well, no, it
you were
was the
gonna do,
whole
or that
thing.
the
It
whole
was
thing?
hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of dollars for this whole getup. I mean, it's greenhouses, it's irrigation, it's, and they have to have whatever, I mean, there was a lot involved in it. So I just don't think, Happy Johnny is gonna just start up his own growing factory, build take up 10 acres and start doing this. I mean, that's not gonna be a cheap venture, so I don't see a lot of people doing that portion of it. You might see a lot of people with, grow lights in their basement growing some, and for smaller recreational use, whatever, but I just don't see it, and there again, like I said, what people do in their house, I don't care. That's not my business.
Okay, the next question that I have is.
Did you get direction on that, or not?
Well, I have consensus on 3 to 2. This will come back as an ordinance with other changes, but it sounds like 3 are saying not to regulate and 2.
Well, that's what I was waiting on Jeff's.
Yeah,
Oh, I
that
thought
was-
he already said.
No, that was good.
Did you? Okay, I missed it, I guess.
Yeah, he
All
did.
right, okay, all right.
Distance from school, we currently have in chapter 123, which is 300 feet. A retail establishment shall not be located within 300 feet. It's our current language. State statute does allow us to go up to 500 feet for a daycare and 1,000 feet from a school. So we just want to ensure that, do we want to include anything for daycares? And do we want to keep the 300 feet or increase that as is allowed? And then my next question will be, I do think we should, or it's a statement then a question. I do think we should include how that will be measured, as we've had other things that are
Yeah.
measured, like food trucks. I think
Front
we
door?
should just get ahead of it, and we should say door to door of how it's measured. And it'd be front main entrance door, to be specific, probably, if that's the direction.
I'd prefer the maximum. I don't think kids need to be seeing this stuff when they go to school or be influenced by any of it.
I think the school portion of it, like daycares are usually sometimes in strip malls, that would be, door to door, but I think the schools should be school property line.
Oh, from the edge, however many feet?
Edge of the property
Yeah,
line.
I could get behind that.
Because it's, which door? And like she said, is it the main entrance, or is it the side door, or is it the back door? I mean, that, you're limiting to, there's multiple entrances and exits in schools.
And I do think that the reason why we did set, or the council set at 300 before, was because we wanted to ensure we weren't doing being too restrictive for CBD type businesses. So I'll make sure I look at the language. If we want there to be a designation between cannabis and CBD.
This isn't all designated as separate? This should all be separate. I thought we were talking about it separately.
Well, we do have it within cannabinoid chapter, so there is some overlap. So
Okay.
I'll make sure that we have it separated out if we can, if there is different direction on, depending on the product.
Yeah, I mean, all of
CBD
this, all
stuff,
of
I'm
this
not
was basically
concerned.
our CBD ordinance,
Yeah.
and it was, why, I mean, why does that not concern you, but the rest of it does?
It's different. The CBD stuff is like lotions, and there's all sorts of stuffs that aren't as blaringly obvious as, marijuana smoke.
Yeah,
You know,
but they
and-
still got a big light-up sign in the window of a pot leaf, and,
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean.
I just think it's a totally different, CBD's not intoxicating, like,
Yeah, it is.
and not as much.
CBD doesn't have a lot of THC in it,
Right.
that's the difference.
Oh, but it has a bunch of other stuff in it, so.
But I think we specifically
vape
made that
pens that
because we
they-
were thinking of like Paul Burgley, when he wants to sell his CBD lotions, he shouldn't be, just because he's in a strip mall and there's a daycare across the street, he shouldn't be limited. But if somebody wants to come in and actually sell marijuana, I think that's different than a CBD-based product personally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem maybe increasing the distance, but I do see what you're saying, is that the gas station's selling CBD products, right? And so is, other places. So, I mean, I guess in that sense, it is different, so.
And it takes a different license to sell it.
Well,
Is-
does it or doesn't it? Because is it all?
CBD's not considered intoxicating.
Yeah, the
Well-
THC products that are in a different category than the cannabis.
Well, I know, but I'm saying as far as our licensing goes, we just have one license that applies to all of it, right? In this
Yes.
chapter? Right, so our licensing is the same,
Well, registration, but yes.
Right.
So
or, yeah, registration.
I guess I was thinking on this totally differently. In our ordinance, the charge for the CBD and the THC is gonna be the same now. Because I don't wanna charge the CBD shops, or just say Paul Burgley, for example, I don't wanna charge him $500 to sell CBD. So I thought we were only talking about intoxicating THC, not
We're talking
CBD.
about,
No, I don't-
yeah,
I don't think
cannabis.
that,
I think we will
like-
end up having a separate registration form
Yeah.
for that, because I am specifically talking about the cannabis.
Okay.
So you wanna kinda split that apart then, okay.
I was
So
assuming we
I
were
don't
doing
think, like a place like Paul's has to have a license. I think we carved that out in here to say that that's not what we're licensing on,
I don't believe, I don't believe he would
Okay.
have
yeah.
to.
Can we have different zoning requirements for different endorsed activities, like, it says hemp manufacturing and
We will get-
wholesale? Can we zone that only in industrial?
We can, but if we can wait on that till we get through some of the city code stuff first, we'll get there.
Okay,
So for cannabis, do we want to increase the distance to the school and daycares to the maximum? Or
What
I
was the maximum
personally
again? Or, sorry, Steve.
500 from a daycare? And actually, I'll read the whole part. It's 1,000 feet from a school or within 500 feet of a daycare, a residential treatment facility, or an attraction within a public park such as, that would be used by minors such as playgrounds and athletic fields. Now, we don't have to worry about that because we already did set something into city code for use on city grounds. But I guess it would be 500 feet for daycare and residential treatment facilities as one area, and then 1,000 feet from a school. Those are the maximums.
What were you saying?
I was gonna say, I think we should go with maximums.
So do I.
What do we do with alcohol?
agree.
Is there distances for alcohol too?
To look that up. It says, "No license shall be granted within 500 feet of any school or church. The distance is to be measured from the closest side of the church to the closest side of the structure on the premise within which liquor is to be sold."
Doesn't give us a lot of guidance there, does it? But yeah, you guys want the max? I mean, I think 1,000 feet it's a ways, but it's not that far. I mean,
For reference, the front door of CBD joint to the Arts and Science Academy property line is 820 feet.
That could be an issue then.
Let's keep it at 500, if that's the case, because that's
And
the
that,
best
that also
location in the
matches,
city for what this involves.
that also matches your liquor, the way you treat liquor then too, at 500.
Sure.
There's a big difference, though, 800 feet. It ain't like the kids are running across 65 to run.
Yeah, that,
Yeah, right.
I mean,
That's,
if
that's
it's-
why the foot, I've never really liked the so many feet language, because it just is,
Well, but I'm just saying, though, 800 feet crossing 65, 2 lanes of it is equivalent to like 2,000 feet. I mean, it ain't like 1,000 feet just walking across the street.
Or
I
or
mean,
can we
that's,
say 1,000 feet unless there's a freeway dividing it?
I'm just saying that you gotta look at it that way.
I mean, I'm okay just leaving it, what do we got, 300 from,
300 from a school,
300 from a school, and that's all we said though.
correct?
And when we say a daycare, is that including like in-home daycares, or that's just like a daycare business, or?
I'm not sure if the statute defines it. I could see if I can find that. In the general language, it does not define it.
I have another question. What if, say, one of these retail businesses comes in and then, somebody wants to start a home daycare within that 500 feet? Are they allowed to if they sign off on that, or would that be, who would have priority there? I know daycare is,
That's playing devil's advocate big time
yeah,
there.
it is.
Huge.
Yeah,
That's a tough one.
Question
it is
for-
tough because we're short on childcare, and
Right,
I'm more
we
concerned
are.
about childcare than marijuana at this point in our
Me too.
community.
Childcare is short everywhere.
All right. So who would have how would that work? Would the daycare just sign off on something saying they're okay with it, or? Because I don't want to tie the hands of somebody that wants to start a daycare in their home either.
I think that's a question for Steve.
But I don't think most people that, you know, we do have zoning for in-home businesses. I think you're gonna sell cannabis out of your house. I don't think that's a right thing. I think you need a storefront.
Right.
Personally, I don't, it's like somebody cutting hair, you got, 10, 15 people a day getting out of it, that's it. Somebody's gonna be selling cannabis out of their house, you're gonna have 10, 15 on every 10 minutes. I
Well,
mean,
I know you guys want to kind of talk about zoning
That has to
too,
be
right? And that's
retail.
going to be another part of this conversation, I'm sure, in the future, is what districts do we allow it in the first place besides, right?
But
So-
think about if, just say Casey's or the strip mall behind Casey's, that's considered retail. Well, there's a houses 50 feet across the street.
Right.
So now if you have something in that strip mall, and then somebody 200 feet away wants to start a home daycare, who has the priority there?
So it does have a definition. The statute defines it within this chapter of talking about cannabis. A daycare is a location licensed with the Minnesota Department of Human Services to provide the care of a child in a residence outside the child's own home for gain or otherwise on a regular basis for any part of a 24-hour day. So by that definition, I would say that does include in-home businesses.
So then that whole strip mall, they wouldn't be allowed to have that in their strip mall?
Correct.
Yeah. And I think there is actually a daycare over there already,
There is one, I believe, right on
Right
that
across the
strip.
street.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would say match it to what we have currently, and we thought that was the right thing at the time, at 300 feet. And I'm okay sticking with that. Well, just, I wouldn't even, I mean, right now,
Just leave it
all
what
we
we
all we
have
have is the retail establishment shall be located not less than 300 feet of a school.
Leave that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I would like to include how we will measure that. And the guidance does say you should be consistent with how you measure other things in your city code, so I'll probably match it to something similar of the food truck, as that's what we had. And actually looking at the liquor, that's how that is as well. It's not from property line to property line. It is from main entrance to establishment.
If that's the case, 300 feet isn't gonna work. If you look at the middle school, the property from the door to the edge of the property line is probably more than 300 square feet. So you could have one set up literally across the street from the middle school, and I don't think that's a good idea. So I don't know if we That's why I think the maximum will be better, but I get it, you also don't wanna handcuff businesses, but at the same time, kids are important to try and protect from
Well, yeah, I
things.
mean, I got 4 little kids myself.
Right.
I mean, I know exactly
Yep,
what it takes to protect
absolutely.
them. So, yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir there, but
300 isn't enough.
I think we can also look at that as far as our zoning. I mean, you're not, I mean, I think that's, the 300 is more to cover you in cases of where the zoning doesn't already cover you, right? Wouldn't you say, Stephanie, is?
I would agree specifically in that example. It's all residential or surrounding it, so if you're not allowing it within a residential district, then it won't be an issue at this time, unless it's rezoned, but.
So, I mean, I think the 300 is good, and then we'll take a look at zoning, going forward from here, but that's where I'd be at.
Okay?
I don't know.
I'd
Anybody?
prefer more feet.
So did we go from 5 to 3?
I'm just leaving it the same as what it is now. And then we'll talk about zoning, in the future here. But-
Okay.
Okay, the next one, I have one more before we talk a little bit about zoning, is for regulating cannabis events. So statute does allow for an individual or business to seek a temporary cannabis event license. Let's see, if the local jurisdiction who's doing registrations wants to regulate it, they can. A cannabis event organizer license entitles a license holder to organize a temporary cannabis event lasting no more than 4 days. And a jurisdiction could determine what type of approval is consistent with their existing ordinance for events. So currently what we have is a special event permit. So that would govern some things that they'd have to come to council. We do have that it can't be on a public grounds or facility, so events would not be permitted, like the community center. But other things that the city could determine is if they even want to allow them at all. It's within your purview to not allow them, so that's an ability. You could also require them to hold their event only at certain places, or you could require them to be held during certain hours. And the jurisdiction could also determine if they wanted to allow there to be on-site consumption or non-on-site consumption for the event.
So right now, Travis, is there any way to tell if someone is intoxicated from marijuana while driving? Any effective prosecutable way?
As far as impairment, no.
So I'm no on all of the events myself. You see, I mean,
don't wanna tie the rodeo grounds hands.
Well, I was gonna
knows in the
say, I feel like
future?
there's been discussion in the past of, I mean,
Been brought up.
yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm fine with allowing events to happen. I mean, it's pretty, they still have to come before council for approval, and you still have all the other, rules and stuff that apply to special events, and I think I would just treat it like anything else.
Sorry, I think I maybe misspoke. I do not believe that we can say that you cannot have an event, but you can say that you can't have on-site consumption at the event. So, sorry. I think we do have to allow it if the state has given them a license. to do
Okay, so the question is not so much of, do we want to allow events, it's do we want to allow on-site consumption at events?
Right, you can set the standards for the event, and you can regulate on-site consumption, whether to permit it or prohibit it.
if we permit on-site consumption and somebody's driving under the influence and they kill somebody, who's on the hook for that?
Be just the same as your alcohol consumption would
Yeah,
be.
same as a liquor store
Okay.
or any event we have. Street
Yeah.
dance.
Any other thoughts, guys?
No?
You guys are also shy tonight.
So do we do not, or we do want to allow, sorry, I may have missed it. Do we want to allow on-site consumption?
I would say yes.
I would say no.
Yes.
I'd say no.
Were you a yes?
I was a yes.
Just to give you guys an example, I saw someone that crashed, okay.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I saw someone that crashed through a building and there was no alcohol, but I had pretty high suspicion that there was something else in his system, and there's no way to prove that. So to me, it's just a risk when you say that you can, and there's no way for PD to even enforce anything.
There is, if PD thinks there's drugs involved,
You have to prove.
you
impairment.
can ask for a blood test.
But a
or
blood
urine
test is not usable in court because if you smoked in the last 3 days, it doesn't tell you that you're impaired right now. So it doesn't work.
For regular narcotics, other narcotics, yes, blood test works, but it doesn't work for THC for impairment. So there's still work, it's one of those in working process to figure out how to do like standardized field sobriety for cannabis or THC and an actual level-based test like you do for alcohol or drugs. Just because the THC there's no standard and it evaporates out of that system so fast. So just the level of THC in your system isn't for impairment for driving.
Sure, have they approved the state, on a state level after they passed all this, like the spit test? I
They
know is-
approved a lot of money.
Well, no,
to-
did they
to-
approve tests?
No, they approved a lot of money to do research to figure this out.
Oh.
They just haven't gotten to the figure it out stage.
They've been trying to
Yes.
figure it out for a long,
Yeah.
long
I mean,
time, yeah.
That's what they're trying to, they've approved money, I think State Patrol requested money, but they're trying to do the, like standardized field sobriety for THC as well as some roadside, not a PB, like similar to a PBT for THC, but they're still in the process of coming up with that, so right now there's not.
Okay, two more things on the events part of it is, do we want to allow if the person holding the event who's if they are a retail sales, licensed sales business having the event, can they sell at the event?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last question on that is, do we want to have a fee associated with that application for an event that we're reviewing?
I mean, I would just do it the same way we do with every other special event, right?
There's no fee with special events.
Oh, there is none?
No.
Really?
I thought there was too.
I thought there was too, yeah, I was gonna say, I thought, doesn't the
We
rodeo
treat
come in every
people
year
right.
and ask us to waive the fee?
There's a $100 cleanup deposit
Oh, okay.
that they typically ask to waive. We just hold the check to ensure that they've cleaned up the area. Sometimes they ask to waive it.
Gotcha. Well, then, yeah, I would say no,
Same thing.
yeah, just do the same as what we've been doing.
And then getting into land use, so we won't be getting much into zoning, but what I would like the committee to think about is if we want to regulate the location of where some of these establishments will be located. I've handed out a sheet that says municipal considerations. For example, if we want to permit a cultivation business within our city, do we want to have a certain parcel size it has to be on because of potential odor issues or implications of water, wastewater impacts of what they're using. If we do want to have some sort of zoning review, then we will add zoning of all the different business types onto our planning commission meeting for discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should definitely talk about that, yeah.
Definitely.
So what staff is going to do from this point is draft some ordinance changes to chapter 123 and include pertinent information from what revisions have been done with the state and statute into ours if applicable, and then incorporate some of the changes that we've discussed here this evening and bring that back for consideration.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. It's a lot of work, I know, doing all that research and trying to stay on top of that when it's changing like that, so. Appreciate you guys spending time on that and getting it figured out. All right, E2, this one is fluoride discussion, and I believe it was.
That was-
Sorry.
One thing I do want to ask Mayor Gordon is if we do want to do item number 3 before item number 2, just in case of time.
Okay.
So we
Yep.
could, because we do have a couple present that
That's-
might want to speak on that.
That's fine with me. So let's go to E3, average water usage discussion, Leroy Johnson and Elaine Fisher.
So this was,
Okay.
yeah, so prior, Leroy had come and asked to be reimbursed for water. My suggestion at the time was, hey, let's do a billing credit. He said, this is how I think we should do it. Let's look at my average before I started watering and average after that. We knew the date that the sod went in, so when I run the math, Leroy comes up for a $1.90 credit, and Elaine had also asked after the fact. I said, well, sure, you know, that was open to everybody. And so her calculation comes out to $7.90. So it's just to confirm that the council would want to go forward with that, because I did not give you any estimate beforehand.
How is that gonna look in our budget?
I think we can survive.
I'm okay with it.
I as well.
I think we're okay with that, guys. Yeah, that sounds good. We appreciate you guys being patient with us, and we're glad that the sod take and everything like that and turned out well, or? Yeah, come on up. If you could, just state your name and address for the record there, and.
Leroy Johnson, 510 Main Street. I'd like to make a comment on this, that, number one, the city we should not have even had this discussion, because it was not any fault of the city is what took place here. The responsibility and the liability should have been on the hands of the contractor, because of the way which was handled. And so, but I want to compliment a few people for the way it was corrected. I want to compliment Matt Sylvester, along with the city crews that came in and removed all of the old decayed sod or dead sod that was there. They took and dug down at about 6 inches, took the old soil out, put new soil in, and then furnished the seed as well. And with that, then, we started the watering process. Elaine used a lot of the water for her side of the project with rainwater, which she had collected in a barrel, even though we didn't get much rain through the summer. But let it be known that this water that we used we did not hook to the irrigation systems. We did not water the remainder of the yards with water. We didn't water the yards, with the exception of this new project. We used the water for that only. I don't know if you've driven by, looked at it. It is, I'm hoping by spring, it will come in thicker. I went out to the city shops, and they gave us some additional seed, which I interseeded again after the original seeding. And so it looked like that took, so we'll have to see in the spring, but it looks like it's certainly going to be, I think, a good catch. And so it should have never happened, because, you see, you cannot take sod and put it on a base similar to this floor and expect it to grow. Yes, they kept it alive because they met their requirement of watering it. They did do that. Well, yeah, you can keep grass alive with water, but once they met their obligation to discontinue watering, with that then, it died. And so,
And I had forgot, we seeded it, not sod this time around, right?
seeded it.
That's right, yeah.
Do you think you're gonna need substantially more water to keep it alive, or start it next spring?
We've quit watering altogether.
Okay.
I think wrap the hoses up, I'm all done for the fall, and I guess we'll have to just see what the spring looks like to, whether we have to. I really think it's gonna catch. The last seeding we did, I can see it's coming, but it is small. But I think the winter, if we get some snow cover, I think it'll be fine. We'll just have to watch it and see what it looks like in the spring. But with that, so I thank you for the city for stepping up to the plate and helping to correct this situation. And so with that, I don't think that we're going to go to Texas on the increase of the compensation for the water usage, but we do appreciate for what the city has done. So with that, again, thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
We're glad to make it right for you. So, and you're right, it's, wasn't necessarily the city's fault, but it was the people that we hired, and we're glad we got that taken care of, so. Okay, do you want to move on to E2 fluoride discussion? I think this was Councilman Merrill.
This is mine. I have a feeling it's probably gonna take longer than 7 minutes.
Let's get her started.
All right, so there have been many studies done that show that fluoridating your water is an extremely inefficient way to slow teeth decay. That's basically the whole point of it. And the state hasn't really looked at the policy since 1970-something. There's a lot of proof in research that says that it's not good to consume it because it increases the risk of bone decay and development of children. The FDA and CDC do not require it, and I think our state is extremely behind on changing the policies on it. There's only 13 states in the U.S. that require water fluoridation. The other 37 states have no water fluoridation, or they leave it up to the municipalities to do a vote to decide if that municipality wants water fluoridation. Now, if you look at research on it, it's been proven that using just regular toothpaste, which has fluoride in it, almost all of them have fluoride, is actually significantly more effective than basically poisoning your body with that. It's going to be a big push, I think, from Robert Kennedy. He's publicly spoken about getting rid of extra fluoridation in water, and I guess I'd just like to get a little bit of a push to stop fluoridating our water. There's already natural fluoridation in our water, and it's been something that they used to give fluoridation awards. I'm sure they still do, but I remember seeing those in the paper back when I was younger, and all my neighbors are like, why are they giving awards for poisoning us? And it just to me, it just doesn't seem like it's something we should do, and it costs us money, so.
I'm 100% for eliminating the fluoride and taking the chips as they fall from the state. I don't think the state's gonna step in, and if they do, they do. If they wanna do legal action, then we can reevaluate the situation, but I'm 100% on board on that. I've had a lot of people confront me over the last couple of years about this situation and getting rid of fluoride in their water, so I'm 100% for it.
What do you guys think over here?
Well, I'm curious why the state forces us to put it in our water. when there's
They
so many
probably
other-
have more prominent needs down at the state, if I were to guess. It just hasn't been a big concern for them. If I were to guess, I mean, look at all the stuff that they've been doing. They're more worried about, other health items, like stuff that I just won't go into, but not about actual health items, so.
We do have Jimmy to fight for us on the state
Yep.
level.
Well, yeah, I mean, this one here, I don't know. I mean, I think this is, you could talk for days probably about all the studies that have been done on this and all the different opinions on it. And I actually was listening to a podcast recently, and they were talking about, well, why did we do this in the first place? And it was to, prevent tooth decay and that kind of thing. But that was at a time where you didn't have readily available fluoride toothpaste, as far as I understand it. I don't know if that's totally accurate or not, but that's what I had heard.
Correct.
And I also heard that because of RFK being appointed, that there was, the stock was going up for dental hygiene companies. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's, if it's something that we don't have to have, I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily harmful, but if it's something that doesn't have to be there, I don't see any reason really to add things to our water that's not necessary. And like you said, I mean, there is natural fluoridation in just about all water. But yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have a axe to grind on this issue one way or another, but.
It's actually considered a neurotoxin if it's ingested at amounts that we actually used to have to be compliant with at the state level. Recently, how long ago was that they lowered the requirement on that, Matt? Do you remember? I remember we talked about this maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I think it used to be 1.2, and they lowered it to where we're at now. I think
Yep.
that's probably, might have been 5-6 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, there's been studies proving the neurotoxicity of it at higher levels like that, and the state was years behind on changing that type of stuff, so.
What do you think, Steve?
I think chemicals in anything is bad for you. I mean, that's why they have people put in RO systems. ROs remove all that. They remove all the impurities. They remove the chlorine, they remove the chloramide. I'd be more argumentative to remove the chlorine out of the water, but that we have to. We have to have the chlorine to kill the bacteria, plain and simple.
Fluoride doesn't kill bacteria, so.
But you know, it's, fluoride, even the water conditioning companies that I deal with, they said straight out that fluoride is a thing of the past. And it shouldn't even be in our water. So, I absolutely have no problem with removing it. I just don't, you know, if you're brushing your teeth regularly, you're getting fluoride. You're not gonna buy toothpaste without fluoride in it. It's impossible. You know, you go to the dentist office, all the water they squirt in your mouth is purified water. It's basically RO water they squirt in your mouth. There's a reason for that. So, to remove the fluoride, I see absolutely no problem doing that. I think it's gonna happen sooner than you think it's gonna happen, that the state's gonna remove it. You know, I guess you'd have to ask Matt, what would the state say if we removed the fluoride?
Staff already
They
checked
may,
on
they
that.
may or not, they may or may not pursue legal action.
Is that the answer?
My answer is we follow state statute. State statute says to feed the fluoride.
Yeah, you're,
Yeah, I had a conversation with the Department of Health, just to follow up, make sure I was just sussing out as much information as we could. And it's basically talking to an engineer who says, I'm just an engineer. If you guys stop feeding fluoride, this isn't my ball. And I tried to, well, could we reasonably expect legal action? And she says, well, I'm not ruling it out, but I'm also not saying it's gonna happen. So there wasn't a lot of,
But the
there
problem
wasn't a
is,
lot of guidance on that.
but the problem is when they come in and do their yearly inspection, they are testing for the fluoride in it. And we could end up potentially being fined. And that fine may be way out of the realm that we want to deal with.
If there is a fine for it, you would think they would list it in statute or somewhere, and
No,
there isn't. It isn't listed anywhere.
It's different. Department of Health is a whole different ballgame than what you're thinking. Department of Health is another division that controls the other divisions. Trust me. Department of Health has more oversight in things than you think state statute does. The Department of Health is a different ballgame.
They would have no leg to stand on. The FDA and the CDC say it's not required in water,
Yeah.
so. And the fact that our state thinks, I mean, they also mandated tampons in male bathrooms, you know, so that's a state mandate, well, so is fluoride, what sounds more reasonable here, you know?
I'm
what-
just saying
yeah.
is, do you want to have the ramifications? At this point, I would say, the ramifications aren't gonna be worth the problem that you're gonna have.
Well,
I'm willing to buck.
why don't
state
we hold off on that here for just a second, and we'll go into recess here. I have a feeling we maybe want to have a little more discussion on that, but I'm not opposed to being on the cutting edge of this, if you guys are up for it.
Be the leaders.
So, sure. But let's dig into that a little bit deeper here when we come back into this meeting. But if I could get a motion to go into recess here, and we'll jump into our planning commission meeting here next, so.
Motion to recess.
second.
I have a motion to recess from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Holmgren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0, and we'll resume this after the planning commission meeting is over, so.